Right, I think we're live. Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, please let me know if you can hear me and see me, and welcome to the Gaming Rules Live Q&A for August 2021. We have no chat on screen. We did this last time. Oh, there we go. The chat's appeared. Yeah, for some reason, the chat doesn't appear until I switch to this scene. Yeah, right. So the way that tonight is going to go is we're going to be here for about an hour and a half. Going to be answering all of the questions that I've been asked in advance. So regular viewers of mine will know that there is a Board Game Geek Guild, and I normally post a few days before this live Q&A on the Guild and ask for people to ask questions in advance. Do that for two reasons. The first one is a lot of people can't make it to the actual live show, so I want them to have the opportunity to be able to ask me questions. But also it's nice to get some questions in advance because I'm not very good at answering questions on the fly, as regular viewers will know. So by getting the questions in advance, I've taken about an hour off this afternoon in order to have a think about the answers that I would give to those.
Audio's a bit off.
Audio's a bit off. What's wrong with the audio? Apparently the audio's a bit off. Is it too loud? Could be too loud. Yeah. I know what's wrong. I've got it all set up for tonight. How's that? That should be better. I had it all set up. I'm doing another stream tonight, and I'd set it all up for the Arkham horror stream. So hopefully that is a bit better. Hopefully it's not as loud. So yeah, it shouldn't be distorting now. Yeah, hopefully that's okay. So we're also going to be giving away £25 worth of vouchers from Games Law. Thank you very much to Games Law for that. Yeah, now very low. I can turn it up a little bit. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. That should be better. It is lower than before, but at least it's not distorting. Yeah, I'm going to be giving away £25 of vouchers from Games Law. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'm also going to be talking about the new Gaming Rules podcast. I'm going to be talking about what's going on this weekend. All sorts of things. But yeah, thank you very much to everybody for joining me in the chat. Let's move on over to some of the questions that I've been asked in advance. Before we do, I do mention the guild. Every live Q&A that I do and every vlog that I do have a guild. It's on Board Game Geek. And it's not just my guild, it's your guild. You are more than welcome to post anything there. Please don't use the news thread. The news thread is for stuff that I normally post. But if you have anything that you want to talk about on there, feel free to post stuff. There's not that much traffic on there. So if you're not a member of the guild, please go onto Board Game Geek. Vicky's going to put a link in the chat now. You just need to subscribe. You need to join it and then you need to subscribe. Otherwise you won't get any notifications. Right. So first question is from Monica. In fact, Monica's got a few questions, but this is the first one. And I think Monica's actually in the chat. First question is from Monica, and Mark has also asked a similar question, so I've bunched these two together. Monica asks, how many plays does it take for me to choose whether I like a game or not? Could I name one game that I didn't like after the first play, and one game that I did like after the first play, but didn't like after some more plays? And Mark says he's found that playing a game 5 times gives him a better handle on rating a game. How many times do I play a game prior to give it a rating? Now, I know there is a train of thought amongst some reviewers that you need to play a game a certain number of times before you review it, or before you even give it a rating, because otherwise it's not fair. And to be honest, I half agree with that. Okay, if I play a game and I really don't like it from my first play, then with all of the games that are available these days, and so many games that I've got to be played, what's the point of me going back to it if I initially don't like it? Now, it could be that I didn't like it because of a certain reason, and I give it another chance by going back to it at a future time. For example, Spirit Island. My first experience of Spirit Island was horrible, and that nearly put me off the game, but that wasn't down to the fact that the game wasn't good. That was down to the experience that I had playing the game for the first time. So imagine this. 4 people playing Spirit Island for the first time, learning from the rulebook. And I'll be honest with you, the rulebook for Spirit Island isn't very good. And I don't think I would ever play it at even 3 players, let alone 4 now. So it was a horrible experience. Spirit Island is now one of my favourite games. It's now probably my favourite cooperative game. It's fantastic. So yeah, that was a game which I didn't like at first, but that wasn't because of the game itself. Games that I didn't like at first, I mean, I've told the story about the Pathfinder adventure card game many, many times, and I now love that game. mainly because the second edition fixes some of the issues I had with the game, but only some of them. It's because my tastes have changed over time. And if I was to pick a game which I liked at first, Hallertau. Now, I keep meaning to go back to Hallertau because when I first played it, I thought this is fantastic, loved it. Played it a second time, thought this is still fantastic. Played it a third time and went, I'm bored of this now. And I need to go back to it again to see if my feelings after the third game are the feelings that I'm going to have, at which point the game can move on. Some people have said that their feelings match what my feelings are, and other people have said, oh no, it's not as boring as you might think. Yeah, so on to Mark's question, playing a game 5 times before you get a better handle on the game. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if I play the game and I don't like it, I'm unlikely to want to play it again. There are certain exceptions, but if I play a game and I like it, and going back to Monica's original question, how long does it take for me to play a game, or how many plays does it take before I know whether I like it or not? For me, probably 1. Is playing a game once a fair time to rate it? Probably not. You probably do need to play it 3 or 4 times because, and going off at a bit of a tangent now, and I was going to try and keep this Q&A short and sweet because we've got other things to do tonight. But going off at a bit of a tangent, and I might explore this at some point in one of my vlogs, is there are so many games that I have which are massively replayable because they are massively variable. And I'm talking about games like Too Many Bones is one of them. And there's another game that I played last week where I talked about the variability being through the roof. And I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was Too Many Bones. But there are other games like that which I could play. Oh, Spirit Island. It was Spirit Island. I could play Spirit Island 100 times and I would not get bored of it because there's so much content in there, there's so much variability, and there's so much replayability. There are other games which I own, which I think are a 9 out of 10 game. I absolutely love those games. But once I've played them 5 or 6 times, is there enough in them to keep me going back to them anymore? So yeah, Mark, it's a good question. How many times should you play the game before you rate it? Because if I rated Hallertau on my first play, it would have been a 9. If I rate it right now, honest opinion, 6.5. So yeah. What about you? What about you in the chat? How many times do you feel you need to play a game, first of all, before whether you know whether you like it or not? Is that 1? And second of all, how many times do you feel you need to play a game before you rate it on BGG? Because if you go in and rate a game after 1 play and then you change your mind after multiple plays, that's not fair. You can always update your rating. Anyway, next question. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. So, second question is also from Monica. Have I ever played games with kids? And if so, which games? So I don't generally play games with kids. It depends what age bracket you're talking about kids, but I do remember, because I don't really have much exposure to playing games with kids. But I do remember playing Concept with Holly. Now, how old was Holly? This is Vicky's niece. She must have been 6 or 7 at the time. And we played Concept with her. Now, if you haven't played Concept, go and look it up on Board Game Geek. It is definitely a game that you can play with younger people, and she really enjoyed it. So yeah, I don't have much exposure to playing games with kids. If you're talking about playing games with older kids, like, you know, between sort of 10, 12 and 14-year-olds, something like that, I've done a bit more of that because there are some really smart kids that I've played games with. Some friends of ours, Sally's son, played a couple of games with him, and it's just the same as playing games with anybody else, really, because he's a smart kid and he's switched on. So yeah, it does depend. Right, next question is from Marwood. What central game mechanism do I think isn't being used to its full potential? Now, this is a really good question, but I'll tell you now, I don't think I'm going to be able to answer this. Is there a game mechanism that I think could be better implemented than it has thus far? Or has it been implemented excellently in a game that didn't get enough exposure? Now, if there was a game mechanism which is popular but it hasn't been implemented, or I think it could be better implemented, then I would have possibly gone on and done that or made some, you know, I'm not a game designer. I'm not good at creative ideas. What I will say is that deck building and worker placement, when they first came out, I mean, deck building and worker placement, 2 of my favorite mechanisms, but deck building when it came out in Dominion, although some people say StarCraft came first, I personally think the deck building mechanism has moved on since Dominion, and I do not like the play all of the cards in your hand or lose them mechanism, for reasons that I've gone into in my top 10 deck building games video. Whereas I love the twist on deck building games that games like Aeon's End have put in place, where you don't have to play all of the cards in your hand. Therefore, you can save them from one turn to the next, so you can save the combos. And in Aeon's End, your discard pile never gets shuffled. So the order in which you put things in your discard pile, when your deck's empty, you flip your discard pile over. Those tweaks, I think, are brilliant. I also like the idea that in some games you can reserve cards. You can put them to one side and get them back later on. And a few deck building games have done that. Worker placement, as I say, Kalis was one of the first worker placement games that came out, which is very, very simple. One worker per space, go round clockwise, put your worker on a space, nobody else can use it. But worker placement has also come a long way. You can have worker placement where it locks up your worker for a turn, or you need to use more than one worker, or you can outbid people by going... There's lots of variations on worker placement, which are all very clever. Going back to the original question, as I say, I don't think I can answer it. I don't think that there is a central game mechanism which isn't being used to its full potential. I mean, there probably is, but I can't pick one. But this is my second question for the chat. And if you're not watching this live, if you're watching this afterwards, then feel free to put your answers in the chat, or I might start a thread on the Board Game Geek Guild with some of these questions. But yeah, is there a game mechanism out there that you think, oh, I really like this game mechanism, but it just isn't being used to its full potential? Interested to see what other people think. Another one that I really like is dice drafting. But to say, is it being used to its full potential? I think so many games have done dice drafting really well. I don't know how they would go beyond that. But as I say, I'm not a designer. Well, technically I am, but that's another story. Right, Andrew says, what was the last game to surprise me in a nice way? So Andrew, what I did this afternoon, I printed off, well, I didn't print off, I ran a report on BGG of all of the games that I've played this year. So that's in the last 8 months. And I went through them all, and I'm taking your question literally, surprise. Because there's a lot of games on there which I played and I really enjoyed, like Tekkenu. Was I surprised that I really enjoyed it? No, because all my patron supporters on the Slack channel said, Paul, you're going to love this game. So it wasn't a surprise that I liked the game. Even if we look at The Magnificent. Now, the first time I played The Magnificent, I said, this game is fantastic. And I've now played it 3 or 4 times, and it is fantastic. Was that a surprise to me? It wasn't really a surprise because everybody I know who's played The Magnificent has said it's a great game. So there's 2 that I can think of, and one of them I think I actually played last year, to be fair. But that's Tapestry from Stonemaier Games, because I went into Tapestry expecting a mediocre game that actually wasn't that enjoyable. Now, I know a number of you out there, a number of you watching this will probably think that Tapestry is not a great game and it is a bit mediocre, but I really enjoyed it to the point where I've now played it 3 or 4 times and I will happily play it again. And I can't wait for the implementation on Board Game Arena because, yeah, Tapestry I really like. Another game that I was a little surprised about is Wildlands Ancients. Now, without going into a side tangent about Wildlands, because I have lots of opinions on Wildlands and about the fact that I think the base game of Wildlands is flawed and doesn't work. If you are a fan of Wildlands, then, sorry, but I don't think it works. Wildlands Ancients turns it into a solo game or a cooperative game, and for me, fixes all of the problems that I had mechanically with Wildlands. And it was really good. So much that this is one of those games which is paining me because I want to play it more, and I just don't have the time to play all of the games that I want to play. But Wildlands Ancients, definitely a game I want to play again. And I've only played it solo, and it plays cooperatively. So hopefully that answers the question. There's another question from Monica. Do I get a song stuck in my head for playing a game? So occasionally, yes, but it's generally not related to the game. It's generally if we've been watching something on TV or I've heard something on the radio, not that I really listen to the radio, and a song gets stuck in my head. I don't listen to that much music, but when it happens, it's generally not related to the game itself. Right, Mindy is asking me a question, and for those of you who are playing the drinking contest, get ready to take your first drink. Mindy has asked, what are my impressions of the new Osprey game that I played last week? So Osprey Games contacted me about doing some work for them professionally. And one of the games that Osprey are going to be publishing at some point in the future, I don't know when, is a game called Crescent Moon. Now, if you look this game up on BGG, you will find a BGG entry for it, because the designers of Crescent Moon have put it up there. But everything that you read about it on the BGG page, well, not everything, but if you look at the pictures of it, that's their prototype. They have approached Osprey Games. Osprey Games have signed the game, and Osprey Games are developing the game and working on the rulebook. And I'm working with Osprey Games, or I have worked with Osprey Games. I'm not the rulebook editor, but I have been a rulebook consultant. So basically what I did is I tried playing the game from the existing rulebook in a private live stream with Osprey Games, highlighting verbally to them all of the problems that I was having with the rulebook. Then they went away for 2 weeks, redid the rulebook, came back to me. We did another test where I went through the rulebook again, and then I ran a blind play test for my Patreon supporters. So 5 of my Patreon supporters got together. Well, it turns out it was actually 7, but it's a 5-player game. 5 of them got together last week, and facilitated by myself and Osprey Games, they played the game using the rulebook to test to see if it works. In answer to your question, I can't answer it because I'm professionally involved in the game. So I can't give my opinion on the game. But feel free to talk to the Patreon supporters on the Slack channel who did play the game. They can give their opinion on it as much as they want. But yeah, I'm professionally involved in it. I mean, I'm not now. I've done my work on it, and it is now back with Osprey Games. For those of you who don't know what the game is, I can tell you the facts about it. It is a 4 or 5 player asymmetric game with area control, conflict, and I think I can say this because this is true, very interesting interactions between the players. For example, one of the players is the Nomad. The Nomad has loads and loads of mercenary units. The other players can buy or hire mercenaries, and when they do, they actually hire them from the other player. So there's a lot of negotiation going on between the players. It's like, oh, well, I want to hire some mercenaries from you. Oh, okay, well, I'll sell you them for this amount of money kind of thing. So there's a lot of player interaction, 4 or 5 player asymmetric game that should take a couple of hours to play. There you go. Right, next question. Of the games that I have currently got rulebooks in development, which one intrigues me the most? Bearing in mind, I am professionally involved in this, so please don't take my reply to this question as endorsement of the game. But right now, it has to be ISS Vanguard. And that's possibly because I've hardly slept in the last 48 hours because I've been working on the rulebook for ISS Vanguard. But the reason why it intrigues me the most is ISS Vanguard, and for those people who have backed the game, you will already know this because you will already have seen all of the updates and you may have watched some videos, but ISS Vanguard is doing something that other games haven't done before in terms of there's like a ship binder. You get a binder with the game. It's like a ring binder, and you're going to be putting things in the binder. And in the binder, there's dividers and there's card protector sleeves, and you get cards and you slot them in. You've got this living campaign game. It's not a legacy game because nothing's getting destroyed, nothing's getting stickered, nothing's getting written on. But you actually, and I don't know any other game that's used the card pocket dividers. I could show you, but I've got the box over there. So it intrigues me in that this game is exploring the boundaries of what you can do within a game. And I think that's really good. It's being very creative. And I want to see more games be more creative like that. So yeah, that's the one that's intriguing me at the moment. Which am I most looking forward to playing myself when I'm not professionally involved in it, but when I'm actually sitting down and going to play it? And that's probably 2 of them. One of them is ISS Vanguard, more from a, this all looks really cool and I now want to play this to see how this would actually play. Plus, me and Vicky played through Tainted Grail, and the story and the narrative in Tainted Grail were fantastic, and this is from the same team. So there's a big part of me which is the hardcore cube pushing Euro game player, which I will always love, but there is another part of me which is loving these narrative games and the story that they tell. So ISS Vanguard is going to have that. But the other game that I'm really looking forward to is Frostpunk, which I'm professionally involved in, but I love the Frostpunk setting. I love the computer game. The board game is one of my most anticipated games when it comes out, and it looks fantastic. And yeah, we're still working on the rulebook at the moment, but I definitely am looking forward to playing that one when it comes out. Have there been any instances where I've worked on a rulebook for a game that didn't appeal to my gaming tastes? Yes, absolutely. And how do I decide which rulebooks to take on as projects? So when Gaming Rules was formed, 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, something like that, I'd left my full-time career and I set up Gaming Rules. I will be honest with you, I took on every bit of work that I was offered because at the time I needed to because I didn't have enough work to do. It turns out I did have enough work to do, but I was taking on a lot of projects. You know, it was a new career. It was all exciting. I was getting all of these offers for various bits of rulebook work that I took on. And I'm not going to name any games, but some of those games went on to fizzle, crash and burn, get rated a 3 or a 4 on BGG, got 1,000 copies, nobody's playing it again, and the game's dead, right? Some of the games that I did rulebooks for were not very good games. But I didn't pick and choose at that time. It was just, Paul, we'd like you to edit our rulebook. We agreed a price, and I went and I did the work. I am in a very different situation now. The situation I'm in now is that I'm cutting down on the amount of work I take on, and therefore I can be more selective of the games that I am taking on. So when they approached me to work on Frostpunk, I was like, absolutely 100% yes, because it's one of my favourite computer games of all time. When they approached me to work on ISS Vanguard, I said yes, because I'd already seen some bits about the game. And also, Awakened Realms, I think this is fair to say, Awakened Realms have a bit of a reputation that their rulebooks aren't great. Now, I have the opportunity here to help Awakened Realms change their company reputation. Let's say, for example, I hope the rulebook for ISS Vanguard is brilliant. And I hope people who've backed the game get ISS Vanguard and go, wow, this is so much better than all of their other rulebooks. I really hope that. Not just because they will then hire me to do their next rulebook. If they do, great. But I like good stories. And it was exactly the same with Portal Games. Portal Games had a reputation for terrible rulebooks. I then worked with them for a couple of years. And during those couple of years, as a company, their reputation for having bad rulebooks started to fade away because they'd done some good rulebooks. And I like that. I like making things better for other people. As I say, not being selfish and hoping to get more work from it, because I don't need the extra work, but yeah. So yeah, I'm being more selective of which rulebook work I take on. Thierry wants to know, will I be attending Essen this year? That is a very good question, because until last week, the answer was 100% yes. Now I'm not sure. I am having doubts about whether to attend Essen for various reasons, which I won't go into here in detail, but I'm getting a bit nervous and having some second thoughts. So yeah, I'm not sure if I will be going to Essen. I have planned that I'm sharing a room with Hilmar, and Hilmar has said that I can let him know middle of September. So within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I will be making a decision on whether I'm going to Essen or not. Brian wants to know, oh yeah, we've had enough discussion about board games. Now let's get on to the most important topic. But before we do, let's do a couple of things. First of all, the contest. Each month in one of these live Q&A, I do a contest. Vicky is going to post a link right now in the chat. This is a Google form, and if you're watching this video either live now or you're watching this afterwards, you can click on that link and you can enter the contest. The secret word is jungle, and if you get the secret word correct, which you will, and the reason why it's jungle I'll explain later, that is the secret word. And if you are a Patreon supporter, please let me know on that form. And basically everybody gets entered into the contest. If you are a Patreon supporter, you get entered twice. And then just before next month's live Q&A, I will do the draw, and somebody's going to win £25 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. Now, last month's Q&A got entered by 90 people, and I did the draw earlier on today, and I'm just having a look to see if the winner's in the chat, and I don't think the winner is in the chat because he's currently on holiday, and this is Jim Alderson. So congratulations, Jim. If you do get around to watching or listening to this, you have won £25 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. I'll drop you an email later on as well. So yeah, congratulations, Jim. And to enter the contest, all you need to do is click on the link in the form, Good luck, and thank you very much to Games Law for giving me the vouchers. Right, so on to the important questions. Brian Robson says, if I was to replace the BGG 1 to 10 rating scale with biscuits, instead of numbers, which biscuits would I place in positions 1 to 10, bearing in mind that Jaffa Cake is a cake and not a biscuit? Now, Brian, you're asking me to list my top 10 biscuits. I don't know if you know, Brian, how much stress and anxiety I have over about making top 10 lists. It normally takes me about 3 days to come up with the top 10 list. So I'm not going to give you a top 10 list. What I am going to do is I'm going to list off some of my favourite biscuits. Chocolate hobnobs, bourbons, custard creams. What else do I really like? Ginger nuts. Vicky likes ginger nuts. I mean, I love ginger, so ginger nuts should probably be on there. See, I'm not a big fan of Jammy Dodgers. Vicky likes Jammy Dodgers. I'm not a big fan. So that's some of them. It's not 10, but it's a few. Speaking of biscuits, I'm gonna jump forward now to Phil's question, because Phil has a biscuit-related question. He said, "What are my favoured biscuits for dunking in tea or coffee? Or am I not a dunker?" Now, I am a dunker. In fact, I dunk everything in my cups of tea. I love toast dunked in a cup of tea. I just love it. It's great. Yeah, so I dunk pretty much every biscuit in a cup of tea. Yeah, are you a dunker or not? Let me know in the chat. Oh, Viscount, says Brett in the chat. Yeah, I do like Viscounts. Yeah, definitely mint Viscounts. The orange ones, not so much, but definitely the mint ones. That would definitely be up there in the top 10. Lone Jedi says no to dunks. No. Absolutely dunk everything. Yeah, dunk every biscuit. Right, on to the game-related questions again. Questions from Mick. Which co-op game does the best job of mitigating against quarterbacking, alpha gaming, whatever you want to call it? Spirit Island. I will mention Spirit Island again. I think Spirit Island does a good job of that. Mainly because, for me, I have enough going on in a game of Spirit Island to worry about, or to be able to even give advice to other players, right? The only bit of thing in Spirit Island where it could possibly be seen as quarterbacking is more, Luke, don't you have an ability that moves the Dahan into this area? Oh, yes, I do. Well, if you do that, I've got an ability that does like 17 damage if there's 3 of them. Oh, great. Right. It's not really telling him what to do. It's more, you know, making suggestions or something like that. But I think Spirit Island does a very good job of preventing the quarterbacking. Because there's just simply so much going on for one player at a time. I also think Gloomhaven does a very good job of it in the way that you're not allowed to discuss certain specific things. So you can discuss general ideas of, oh, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to be going early-ish, but you can't actually discuss absolutely everything. So it does lead to this unpredictability. And players are making their own choices in the game. Now, you could say, is anybody able to go over here and kill this goblin, you know, early on, because, you know, things like that, but you can't actually really be telling people what to do. But again, this is another question for you watching in the chat now. Oh yeah, penguins. I forgot about penguins. Love penguins, or Tim Tams as they are in Australia. Yeah, they're really nice as well. So yeah, what cooperative game do you think does a good job of preventing the quarterbacking problem? Either let me know live in the chat or let me know by leaving me some comments on the video. Is Jim here? Jim is here. Jim's in the chat and he's won. There you go. Congratulations. Next question. Which games do I think belong in the discussion for the most underrated games, and why do I think they are underrated? So I actually have a few. And what I did is I looked at BGG. I sorted my entire collection by my rating and compared it to the general geek rating. And there's a lot of games which I've rated like a 9 out of 10, where the general rating seems to be between 6 and 7. So for me, that would class it as an underrated game. Stauffer Dynasty, I think is brilliant. Licita, I think is really good. League of Six, I think is really good. Crown of Amara, Royal Palace or Palais Royal, Mycorinos, Assyria. That's just a few. I could probably give you about 50 games at least which I think are underrated. In other words, games which I think are 8.5 or 9 out of 10 or higher, and nobody plays them, nobody talks about them, and yeah, I've got loads of them. There's lots of underrated games. That's the next question if you're watching this. Let me know your underrated game. We've got so many discussions we could have on BGG. Right, we've done the Phil question. Kenneth. Kenneth is asking, what is my favourite board game named after a city? I would have to say Caelus, but I don't know whether Caelus is a city. I think it's probably a town, but I'm going to say Caelus anyway. And what is my favourite city that also has a board game named after it? Again, feel free to answer these in the chat if you're interested. I don't know whether I have a favourite city. I'm not really a city person, and I was trying to think of all of the cities that we've been to, and I don't really have a favourite one. So yeah, I don't have one. I can't answer that one. Bruges, says Chris Incal. See, Bruges is a good game, and I've not been to the city, but Bruges is going to be replaced by Hamburg, which I think is a better game. Right, Jimmy wants to know, this is another good question. Have I ever noticed that live streaming a game affects how well I enjoyed the game? For better or for worse? If so, what are some examples, and does it depend on what type of game it is, solo versus multiplayer? So, I'll be honest with you, live streaming a game adds quite a lot of stress and anxiety over and above what I would get if I was just sat playing a game, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's a problem, because I like live streaming, and I'm doing 10 live streams this week, including this one, but this one's a bit different because I'm not playing a board game. But tonight I'll be playing Arkham Horror Living Card Game, which is a live stream. So I will be absolutely 100% honest with you. If people came round tonight and we sat down and we played the Arkham Horror Living Card Game, and I didn't live stream it, I would probably enjoy it more than if I live streamed it. How much more? I'm not sure. Maybe 5%, maybe 10%. But doing a live stream of a game adds an extra level of stuff. First of all, there's a lot of extra preparation. I have to spend, at least half an hour or an hour setting everything up, getting the lighting right, adjusting the levels of the microphone, then forgetting to adjust the levels of the microphone back ready for the live Q&A, like I did at the start. So there's a lot of that. I wouldn't have to do that if it was just friends playing a game. Plus, I've got to make sure the stream's going out. Plus, I've got to, keep an eye on the chat, which I don't mind. I love the live chat. I love talking to the people in the chat. So it's not that I don't enjoy it. I would always choose to live stream, mainly because, and slight side tangent here, but for those of you watching this that are Patreon supporter of mine, you are basically funding my life. I am only able to do what I can do because of the support of the Patreon. And the Patreon support encourages me and wants me to do more live streams because people can then watch the videos. So yeah, thank you very much for your support. That enables me to do it. On the other side of things, there are some games which I am live streaming which I don't enjoy. Don't enjoy is the wrong word. Right, let's say I'm doing a live stream. We start doing the live stream. It's not going well. It's either not going well because we're hitting rules issues, or I'm just really tired, right? If I start a game and suddenly I get really tired, I'm like, oh dear, I'm going to struggle here. And when I start to get tired, I start to get grumpy and irritable, and sometimes it goes quite quick. And then I look at it and I go, oh my God, we're on round 2 out of 10. We're going to be here for another 3 hours. Now, this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I have done live streams which have been long live streams, and half an hour in or an hour in, I'm starting to flag. If I was, and let's say it's a solo game, right? If that was just me playing a solo game and I wasn't live streaming, I could pack it away and go to bed or do something else. But I can't because I'm live streaming it, and I've got to then carry on. And sometimes it is, yeah. But anyway, as I say, I don't want you to think that I don't enjoy doing the live streams, because I really do enjoy doing the live streams. But I can't do them without the support of the Patreon because there's so much prep that goes into making them handy. Right. Chris is asking a live question. This is a very good question, Chris. And thank you for mentioning this, because I was going to mention this and then I completely forgot. When I'm live streaming, because it takes a certain percentage of my brain power to manage the stream, look at the chat and everything else, I'm not able to actually concentrate on my game. So if the game is really complicated, and you've probably seen this, when I've done some live streams, you probably think Paul's playing really badly. He's making really bad decisions. And one of the factors is that I'm kind of hosting the stream. And that means that depending on the game, I'm actually not playing very well. Whereas if you turned all the cameras off and I was just downstairs, I'd be like, right, I can just play this game. I can just concentrate. And I'm only human and I only have a certain amount of brain power. And it's not that great. It's good at certain things, but it's not good at other things. And this is possibly why I can't two-hand a multiplayer solo game. My brain just can't cope with it. So yeah, there are certain games that I've done online where I've played it, and at the end of it, I wish I hadn't have played it. And this is why sometimes I have run a game, like when I did Mage Night, and I just got people around and I taught them how to play. And I didn't actually play it myself, because it was actually a lot easier on me to not play the game at the same time. So yeah, good question, Chris. Speaking of brain power, Joe Harrison's got a good question. Joe wants to know, when I'm working on several rule books at once, how do I remember the rules for each? And I will be absolutely honest with you, it's really hard. And a lot of my struggles with sleep and being exhausted and everything else is not from the physical nature of the work that I do, because I do very little physical, but the mental energy that I'm having to spend. Okay, I do 2 hours of Frostpunk, then I'll do 2.5 hours on Endless Winter, then I'll do an hour on Weather Machine, then I'll do an hour on Batman, then I'll do a couple of hours on ISS Vanguard. How do I do that? I don't really. I mean, I do, because that's my job, but it is mentally exhausting. Not only remembering the rules of these games, but remembering what's the capitalization standards that we're using in this document. What about in this document? In this game, you perform an action, but in this game, you take an action. And I'm having to try and remember the writing style of all of these different rule books all at the same time. It is exhausting. And like I've said many times, don't ever do what I do. It's not good. It's not healthy. And I'm trying to cut down. I really am trying to cut down. So next question is from Jade Driver Cat. New to the hobby. Welcome to the hobby. Having said that, you find that there are already some mechanisms in the games that you're drawn to. Oh, sorry. There are already finite mechanisms in the type of games that you're drawn to, and fewer novel implementations of them. Okay, so I've not got any details other than that, but I know what you mean. There's worker placement, there's dice drafting, there's deck building. We have a certain number of mechanisms that a lot of games have. And you've found that the games that you're drawn to, you are finding already that there's similarities. Do I, as a very experienced gamer, I've been gaming a long time, find that if the theme is good, then you don't pay attention to how the game mechanisms work? So my honest answer to that, which regular viewers of mine will know, is absolutely not. For me, it doesn't matter how good the theme of the game is. You could say, Paul, I've got here a Dresden Files board game, which is going to be as good as the Arkham horror game and immerse you in the setting, and you get to play Dresden and you get to do all of it, right? You could give me that game. The theme for me would be brilliant. Or you could give me a Star Wars game or a Lord of the Rings game, or I like so many themes. But if the game is rubbish, I'm not going to play it. I am not going to play the game at all. So I am a game mechanisms person. If there's a theme, brilliant, right? So for example, if you rethemed the Arkham Horror living card game to be the Dresden Files living card game, I would possibly enjoy it a bit more. Not to say that I don't like the Arkham Horror theme. I do. I love it. But the theme for me will make me enjoy a game better, but the theme alone will not make me enjoy a game. There are many games out there with themes which I might find interesting, but I'm never going to play the game because I don't actually like the mechanisms of the game. But Jade Driver Cat says, this is the reason you'll buy or play a game aside from the social interaction, which you love. Yeah, and to be honest, there are a number of people out there who will play games because the theme is good and they like hanging around with friends, even though they might not like the game. Me, I don't do that. I'm too fussy. I've got 500 games that I enjoy playing. Why would I choose to play a game which the theme is good, even though I don't like playing the game, when I've got so many other games where I actually like the game? Yeah, I'm quite lucky in that respect. Right, Frederick, moving on. Frederick has said that he's noticed that I've been playing some war games recently, just like he has. How come? So I think I've talked about this. I think I've talked about this in my video logs. But there's a few reasons. So for one of the reasons is when I got into gaming in the mid-80s, hex and counter war games were a thing. Right now they still are a thing, but they are a niche hobby within. They're a niche part of a niche hobby. But hex and counter war games were, to say they're more popular back then than they are now. We didn't have, back in the mid-80s, we didn't have the games that we have now. Okay, so hex and counter war games might be just as popular now or even more popular than they were back then. It's just we have all of these other games. What I'm saying is there is only one games convention that I've been to in the last 20 years where anybody was playing a hex and counter war game. Okay, they're just not in the part of the hobby that I'm a part of. However, they were back in the 80s, and I've always had a little bit of an interest in them and wanting to explore them and wanting to play them more. And since turning 50, I decided it was time to start doing the things that I've been wanting to do, even if I do them and then tick them off the list and don't do them again. Okay? But I've been wanting to spend a bit of time exploring them. The other reason is, and moving on from hex and counter war games, because Nemo's War is not a hex and counter war game. Pavlov's House is not a hex and counter war game. Another thing which I have an interest in is historical simulations of things that actually happened from World War II. I don't know why I've got that interest, but I do. And the games from David Thompson, Pavlov's House, Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms, things like that, they recreate a really interesting thing that happened during World War II. So I like the fact that I'm expanding my knowledge about something that actually happened as well as playing a game. So Frederick is saying that it's far from what you used to seeing on Gaming Rules. That is true. But to answer that, I like to think of myself now as more of an omni-gamer, right? 10 years ago, if I had my YouTube channel 10 years ago, you would have been seeing Cube pushing Euros, and that's all you would be seeing. Now, on the channel, you're seeing a wide variety of games. And if it weren't for spoilers and things like that, you'd be seeing other narrative-based games. I'd be doing escape room games on the channel as well, because I absolutely love playing escape room games or puzzle games. But I'm not doing them on the channel because I only generally play them with Vicky, and we're not going to do them again afterwards, and they're full of spoilers. So yeah, I'd like to think that I do a wide variety of games. I mean, if you look at the channel, if you look at some of the games that I've covered in the last 6 months, you can't get much different with some of them. So, next question from Frederick. When I watch playthroughs, when I'm watching for fun or to pass the time, what kind of games do I enjoy? Yeah, no such thing, I'm afraid. There is never a time when I actually have time to watch playthroughs. So yeah, that just doesn't happen, I'm afraid. Is there any kind of games that are the easiest and more enjoyable to stream? So absolutely, definitely. And if we take, for example, the game that I'm going to be live streaming this Friday I am going to be doing a live stream of the solo game of Anachrony using the new Chronosis bot. That is going to take me hours to prepare. Now, it's going to be enjoyable. I'm going to enjoy it. But I've got help. One of my patron supporters, Stevie, he spent time this week learning the Chronosis bot, and he's going to be playing it with me. So it is going to be a solo playthrough, but the two of us are going to be playing together as one. That has taken a huge amount of pressure off me to learn what is potentially a complex AI, because I don't really get on with complex AIs. They're very clever, and I really respect and appreciate the work gone into them, but my brain can't handle them. So Stevie's helping me out with that. He's a lifesaver, because if he didn't do that, I wouldn't enjoy that playthrough. Doesn't matter how good the game is, I wouldn't enjoy that playthrough because it would be too hard work. Are there playthroughs which are easier and more enjoyable to stream? Yeah, definitely. And it really depends on the game, and it depends on the complexity of the game. If we take tonight, for example, tonight I'm going to be doing a live stream of Arkham Horror, the living card game. There's 3 of us here, and it's going to be enjoyable because there's going to be people watching in the chat that are going to keep us honest with the rules, and it's going to be good. That is an easier stream to do than, say, a 2-player game of Too Many Bones, where there will be people in the chat helping me with it, but Too Many Bones is a lot more of a complicated game. There's a lot more for me to think about. Right. But Frederick is saying the Leader series from DVG could make excellent streams. Yeah, so I do have a contact at DVG, but I haven't got that. Right, the contest. Somebody wants me to repeat the contest. Vicky's going to post a link in the chat now. If you want to enter the contest, and you can do this if you're watching it live, or if you're watching this video afterwards, you just need to click on the link in the contest. What's really interesting, okay, I tell you, last month, we had 90 people enter the contest. 90. Last month's live Q&A had over 1,000 views. Most of the people who entered the contest did so during this live broadcast. I can see right now we've got 93 viewers. Most of you watching this live now will enter the contest. I mean, it's very simple. Just click on the link and fill in the things. The secret word is jungle. But what I'm saying is we've got about 100 people watching this live now. There will be approximately another 1,000 people who watch it in the next month. How many of that 1,000 people enter the contest? Usually about 20 people, which is not many. So I don't know why, but the contest is open to everybody. All you need to do is click on the link, put the secret word of jungle, and that's it. You get entered. And if you're a patron supporter, you get 2 entries instead of 1. And I do the draw, and I'll do it just before next month's live Q&A. Right. And the games vouchers are from Games Law. So thank you very much to Games Law for giving me the £25 worth of games vouchers to give away. Right. Jim Alderson, winner of last month's live Q&A, has got a question. Game for a plane, game for a train, and game for a car if you are a passenger. Through the Ages, using the app. On a train, Through the Ages, using the app. And in a car as a passenger, Through the Ages, using the app. There you go. I know that's a bit of a get-out clause, but that would be my go-to game in all of those 3 situations, is playing Through the Ages on an app, except in a car, I'd probably get travel sick. So one of the best games that I think you can play in a car is a game that I came up with myself probably about 15 years ago, back in the day when I used to be driving to Essen. Maybe not 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. But back in the day, I used to be able to drive to Essen and back. It's like an 8 to 9 hour journey. So on the way there, we basically made a game, and it was called What is the Game? And what you do is it's the yes/no game. So the person whose turn it is thinks of a game, and then the rest of the players in the car in clockwise order, proper game, take it in turns to ask a question which can only be answered by yes or no. And then eventually somebody will guess what the game is, and they take the next turn. It's a good way of killing time, and it's good fun. So you'll be saying, like, does it have a victory point track around the board? No. Right, next player. Is it a historical setting? Yes, which means they get to ask another question. Basically, you ask a question. If the answer is yes, you carry on going. Right, another question from Jim. What is my most frustrating game of all time, and why? Now, I've played a lot of bad games in the past, but when I look back at the games that I've been playing, certainly this year, I wouldn't have said any of them were bad or frustrating. If you're talking about the most frustrating game, there's one game that came to mind when I was thinking about this, and that is Fortress America. Now, Fortress America is a game that came out initially in the 80s. It was part of a trilogy of games by MB Games, I think. There was Shogun, which then got renamed to Samurai Swords, that I have a copy of in the attic. There was Axis and Allies, the classic, which I have multiple copies of around the house. And there was Fortress America. Now, I have copies of Samurai Swords and Axis and Allies. I've played Axis and Allies a lot. I've played Samurai Swords probably about 10 times back in the 80s, early 90s. But Fortress America was the one that nobody seemed to have. Nobody I knew had really played it, but it was the third one in that trilogy. I don't know if it came out first or third. So I've always wanted to play it. I've always wanted to try it. Now, Axis and Allies has a whole bunch of dice for combat, but I love Axes and Allies. I think it needs a couple of house rules to make it a bit less random. Samurai Swords is a bit too long, and again, dice for combat, but I remember that being really good. Whereas Fortress America I'd never played. So I assumed that it was in the same category as the others. And then, X number of years ago, I can't remember how long it was, Fantasy Flight Games did a reprint of Fortress America. I was like, well, brilliant. This has answered I'm now going to get a chance to play the game. And I'd heard that they hadn't changed the game. All they'd done is updated the components. So I managed to find a copy in a second-hand thing for 20 quid. 20 quid for the new version of Fortress America. So I got it and I read through the rules and then we tried playing it. And it was one of the worst games that I have ever played in my life. And what was frustrating is this game belongs back in the 80s, in my opinion. If you're a fan of Fortress America, let me know, because I'm really not a fan. It was awful. This was a game which should have, some of those games that came out in the 80s that were like, oh, okay, we just do this and put this on the board and roll some dice. That's what it was. Nothing in the game. It was awful. Yeah, I cannot. If you are a fan of the game, I would love to know why. Because I'm not just slating the game because for no reason. I'm slating the game because the 4 people that played that game all had exactly the same opinion about the game. And we're all experienced gamers, and we all said, there is nothing in this game to like. It is, things come on the board, generally speaking on the turn of a card, then things move across the board, and then you roll dice for fighting each other, and you repeat it. Now, one player is America, and the other 3 players are attacking them, so it's a 1 versus many game. And the one player who's playing America is an active part of the game. But the other 3 players, the downtime is massive. So we can talk about this on the Gaming Rules Slack channel afterwards if anybody else has played it. So yeah, without me going into more of a rant about the game, that was frustrating. And I was more frustrated because I was expecting it to be at least a playable game. And for us, it definitely wasn't. I can see some people in the chat do like Fortress America. As I say, I'd love to know why. I'd love to sit down and have a discussion because I might be missing something about it. I really might. Okay, Monica asks a question. Imagine the scene. And I want you all just to take a moment and think about this question yourself, because this is a moral question. You're playing a cooperative game. Somebody has to take the bullet for the team. You can't take the bullet yourself. Doesn't matter why, but you can't choose you. But you can choose between one of the 2 other players, right? Somebody who's got 1 life left, but they have a special ability that might save them. Or another player who has plenty of life left, but the 1 hit might kill them. Which would you choose and why? And you're not allowed to discuss it with any of them beforehand. So which would you choose? Person A, who only has 1 life point left, but they have a special ability which might mean that the bullet bounces off, or person B, who has loads of life left, but they have a weakness that it might kill them straight away. So for me, once everybody else has given their answers, for me, I wouldn't view it as anything other than a mathematical question. If it was 50-50, I would flip a coin. I literally would flip a coin. I wouldn't. I mean, I flip coins or I make decisions randomly in games anyway. Where it is 50-50, I would basically flip a coin. If it was more one side than the other, then I would go with that side. So if it was 60-40, I'd go with the 60. So that's what I'd do. But it is an interesting question. Yeah, and I'm curious to what other people think. How many of you would flip a coin if it was 50-50? Or would you actually make a decision yourself? Right. Class wants to know. I did a video, by the way, with Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple on the top 10 thematic Euro games. Class said he enjoyed the video. What is my favourite bone dry, entirely themeless Euro game? I have lots of them. I could actually probably do a top 10 My favourite games that I think have no theme whatsoever. I'm going to throw a few at you now. Newton, Trajan, Great Western Trail, loads. I mean, you know, I could throw so many themeless Euros at you that I love playing. So, and that's another question. That is another question for the chat or comments afterwards. Let me know. Next question is from Kyle. This is related to the previous one. How do I feel about music playing in the background when playing games? So we don't generally have music on when we're playing games. I think if there was music on, I would possibly find it a little bit distracting because I'm not used to it. So I would definitely want to have music that wasn't distracting. And Kyle says, if it has lyrics in it, it would probably be more distracting. So what about purely instrumental music? Yeah, it's not something that we ever really do. Does Mark have Gloomhaven music on when we're playing Gloomhaven? Okay. And I think we had music on once when we were playing Mysterium, which was quite good. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, as I say, we don't generally do it. Schiffers wants to know, if I am a game designer with an unlimited budget, which board game would I design and which video game? So video game, I don't know, but if I was a games designer and I had unlimited time and unlimited budget, then I would go back and I would resurrect my own Anno board game that I've been working on, brackets, not really working on, for about the last 10 years. It would take about 12 hours to play. It would be fantastic. It would be a map that was 6 foot big. Basically, forget this new Martin Wallace Anno 1800 game, which I think is really good. I was working on a game that was trying to recreate the experience of the Anno series of computer games in a lot of detail, way too much detail. And it literally would have taken 12 hours just to even play the start of the game. But yeah, within enough time and enough budget, that's what I'd work on. Because I'm sure there'd be one person out there who would play it. David wants to know tips or recommended how-to videos for painting miniatures. David is a complete novice and doesn't own any supplies. So the first thing to do, David, is to get on the painting channel on the Slack group, because there's lots of people on there. So there's one person who I would recommend, and that is Mark Sarastro. I'm friends with Mark, and I am a patron supporter of Mark's. Mark does amazing videos at painting. Now, I will be honest with you here. Some of Mark's videos are aimed at the beginner, which is really good, and some of them he uses a basic set of paints. But when I was getting back into painting and I was watching a lot of Mark's videos, some of his videos require a skill level which is way beyond what I have. And I actually found it quite frustrating that I watched his video like 3 times, and then I was painting while watching his video, and he makes it look easy because he's very, very good. And I'm using exactly the same paints with exactly the same brushes and exactly the same techniques, and mine looks rubbish and his looks brilliant. So I got a little bit frustrated. Just be aware of your own skill level, and the more you paint and the more practice you get, it will take time. But as I say, pop on the Slack channel. There are lots of painting channels that I've watched. Sarastro is one of them, but there's lots of other ones out there of people with varying skill levels. Yeah, more than happy to help you get into it, and we can try and help you as well. Too Many Bones questions. Now that I have several playthroughs under my belt, how would I compare and contrast true solo versus multiplayer solo, as in multi-gearlock solo, two-handing it, versus multiplayer? My opinion on that is the same as it was after the first game, and it probably comes as no surprise to regular viewers that I will always play a multiplayer game of that in preference to a solo game. I think the way that the players interact, the way that the gearlock interact with each other is a much better experience, but that is the same for me with every with every solo game. I would much prefer to play cooperative solo games like Spirit Island. I would much prefer to play Spirit Island with 2 or 3 than I would with 1. It's not to say that it isn't a good solo game, because I've played lots of solo games of Too Many Bones and it's fantastic. But I think it's better with multiplayer. As for playing 2 gearlocks myself, nope, I can't. I wouldn't be able to handle Tyrants, easiest to defeat, most frustrating. I still don't know. I still don't know them enough. Some of them I've played 2 or 3 times. But the problem with Too Many Bones is that I'm only playing it once a month, and in between plays, I don't remember things like the Goblin King's knockback attack, or the one that has Hardy. You know, there's lots of different tips and tricks that you learn when fighting against the different tyrants, and I'm not remembering them from one playthrough to the next. So yeah, I don't know which the most frustrating one to fight was. That is more of a question for the again, for the Slack channel, the Too Many Bones channel on the Slack channel. Right, Nick wants to know something that I would like to change in my office or house to make it easier to do the work I do or stream. For example, he knows that I'm having difficulty working out lighting for streaming. Yeah, basically a bigger room and lighting. I have an issue with lighting. We've recently had a new overhead light fitted because the room was just too dark. And unfortunately, we've been getting a lot of glare and reflections from it. And we've done hours of tests and we've tried all sorts of things and we've not managed to fix it. So yes, lighting is the biggest problem that I face. Right. Nick is also saying that my last goal for the Patreon was the podcast. What is the next milestone? So yeah, for those of you watching this who don't know, I said when I reached 700 supporters on Patreon, I would launch the Gaming Rules podcast. So it's time to tell you about it if you don't already know about it. The Gaming Rules new podcast, because there used to be a Gaming Rules podcast years ago, there is a new one. It is called the Gaming Rules new podcast. It is now live. There are 2 episodes on there. Please go on and subscribe to it on whatever source you use for listening to podcasts. It is on Audible, it is on Apple, it is on Spotify. If Chris is in the chat, Chrissy is in the chat. Chrissy will know all of the places where it is live on. Now, the Gaming Rules new podcast isn't any new content. I don't have time to make any new content, unfortunately. What it is an audio version of the video logs and this Q&A. So basically twice a month, there will be a Gaming Rules podcast. One of them is the video log, one of them is this live Q&A. So if you're watching this live Q&A, you don't need to listen to episode 4 of the Gaming Rules new podcast, because all it is just this podcast. And if you watch my Q&A, if you watch my video logs on YouTube, you don't need to listen to it. So why am I doing it? I'm doing it because a lot of people said to me that they can't watch the video logs and they can't watch the Q&As because they don't have time to watch them on YouTube. But if they were in podcast form, they would be able to listen to them. So that's why I've done it. So for those of you who would prefer to watch these Q&A or listen to these Q&As in a podcast form, I've done it for you. But I say I've done it for you. My Patreon supporters have done it for you. Basically, the reason why I set it at 700 is I don't have the time to manage this myself. So I have asked for some help, and I am paying somebody else to do this for me. And the Patreon support allows me to do that. Back to the question, what is my next goal? So my next goal was, I don't yet know, maybe, because at the moment the Patreon campaign is growing on average by about 5 to 10 people a month. It's currently at 700 people. Or is it at 750? I think it's at 750. Bear with us a minute. Have I lost track? Patreon.com. I think it's 750. No, it's 714. Yeah. So I said when I got to 700 a month, I would do that. The next goal, I do have another goal, but I don't know when to set it at. Because the next goal is actually going to take me a lot of time. My next goal is I am going to do a series of videos where I go through my entire collection, and I do that thing where it picks 2 games at random and I choose which one to keep, and then that game goes into round 2, and then it picks 2 more games at random, and then I pick one and it goes into round 2. So basically the first video will be about 3 hours long, and it'll be me going through my entire collection and saying winner, loser, winner, loser. And then the second video should be half the length, because I will then go through them again, and I'll keep doing it, and I'll keep doing it, I'll keep doing it until I get to 1 game. That's my idea. It will probably take me about 3 days of work to do. If you can imagine the amount of money that I will lose for taking 3 days off work, I want to do it because I think it'll be fun. but I also know that it's going to take a very long time to do. The first thing I've got to do is I've got to get my BGG collection up to date, and it isn't up to date. I have got games which I haven't added to the collection. I've got rid of games that I haven't removed from my collection. So yeah, that's the first step, is to get my BGG collection up to date and keep it up to date. So yeah, that's the idea that I've got. I think it'll be fun. With Gen Con coming up, I think this is also Nick. Yeah, this is also Nick. With Gen Con coming up, it had him thinking how much he would love to meet up with the other fellow Gaming Rules supporters. Not sure what they could be called, the Groganites or the Gaming Rulesers. Do I have any plans in future within the next 5 years to make it back to Gen Con? Me, no. But that isn't to say that I wouldn't absolutely love it if all of my Gaming Rules Patreon supporters that were going to Gen Con were to arrange a time and a place to meet up, take a group photo, maybe go out for a drink, maybe play some games together. That would be fantastic. If you are a Gaming Rules supporter on Patreon of mine and you are going to Gen Con, if you're on the Slack channel, we have a Gen Con channel. Please post in there. If you are not on the Slack channel, drop me an email. And if you don't mind me passing that email on to the other people who are going, then, as I say, it would be really, really good. Imagine how I would feel if you all get together, send me a photo, send it to me and say, Paul, we've all met up. Because that's one of the benefits of the Patreon campaign, is that the number of people who have become friends with each other through the Patreon is heartwarming. So yeah, it's really, really nice to see that. Right, that is the end of all of the questions that I got asked in advance. I was hoping that would take about 40 minutes. It's taken an hour and 10 minutes. Now, unfortunately, we need to disappear at 6:30 today, so I only have 20 minutes left. So what I'm going to say is, please no more questions for today. Lots of you have asked lots of questions. I can see the questions that you've all been asking. Vicky has been copying and pasting them into here. I don't know whether I'm going to get around to answering all of these. The reason is, we've got to go because I'm doing Arkham Horror tonight. Oh, and I did say why I was going to say jungle. Right, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to put on another view. This is the view from the overhead camera. Okay. This is the game set up for tonight. And the reason it's called Jungle is because we're going into the jungle tonight. We are playing the Forgotten Age Chapter 2. So, yeah, this is all set up ready for tonight. Oh, the chat's gone. Brilliant. The chat will come back in a second. Sorry for that. Every time I switch over, the chat disappears. Yeah, right. Anyway, so please no more questions. If you do have questions for me, please save them till next month. Hopefully the chat's going to come back. Yeah, excellent. Right, so I am now going to go through the questions that people have been asking on the chat in advance. Adam is asking, how is prep for GridCon going? I haven't done anything more on GridCon for the last few weeks, but at some point in the next couple of weeks, I need to make a decision and we need to start doing things. So yeah, prep for GridCon is we're not doing any at the moment, but we do need to do some. Luna Bear says, would I consider doing a coin game playthrough? I would absolutely do a coin game playthrough on the channel. I have played one coin game. I played the Vietnam one, Fire in the Lake, and I have a huge amount of respect for coin games. And I wanted to play one to see what it was like. And I've played one, and I know what it's like, and it was brilliant, but there was no point in me playing the game. And the reason is, for those people who don't know, coin games are a whole series of games set around a historical setting, and their coin stands for counterinsurgency, and it's usually 4 players. Correct me if I'm wrong, for those people who know more about it, but it's usually 4 players. It's very asymmetric, and each player has their own particular special abilities, objectives, how they get points and everything like that. And in the one that I played, Fire in the Lake, the 2 Vietnam players were kind of together and the 2 non-Vietnam players were kind of together. But the reason why I said there was no point in me playing it is it was a learning game, right? The whole point of me playing that game was a learning. Okay, so the point of me playing it was I have played the game, ticked off the box, and I have learned how to play. The reason why I said it was pointless me playing it, which is a bit harsh, is unless you know what the other players can do, and unless you know what the objectives of the other players are, you're not really taking part in the game. So for example, I was playing, I think it was the Viet Cong, and I did something, and I knew what my objectives were, and I was trying to achieve that objective, and I grouped together a lot of my pieces in one place. And then the Americans came along and carpet bombed me and killed all my people. Now, if I'd have known the Americans could do that, I wouldn't have put them all in one place. So that was my mistake. As a player, I made that mistake. However, what I'm saying is, and I might be wrong on this, but if you are playing a coin game, you've got to know what all of the other players can do so that you don't make the silly mistake I made, right? And you also have to know what the other players' objectives are so that you stop them. The other thing that I did is I left one particular area undefended, and then another player went in and went, oh, thank you very much, that's worth like 9 billion points for me. And I'm like, well, if I'd have known it was worth 9 billion points for you, I would have defended it. As I say, this is, I played this once. It was about 7 or 8 years ago now. But I love the idea of the coin games. But if I wanted to do one on the channel, I would have to basically play it 2 or 3 times before doing the video. Okay? And at the moment, whilst, yeah, I kind of would like to do one, you are the only person that's asked me to do one recently. If all of my Patreon supporters have been saying for months, Paul, we want to see you do a coin game, we want to see you do a coin game. If you think about the amount of time that I would have to dedicate to get in the game, learning the game, practicing in the game, playing the game, to be ready to do a playthrough. What I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to do a playthrough video of me playing a coin game for the first time, because I would make the same mistakes and it wouldn't be a fair... I don't think it would show off the game. Let's say that Fire in the Lake game that I've talked about, let's say I did that as a live stream. How many comments would I get saying, well, that was a stupid stream. What was the point in that? You played terribly. So I just don't want to do that really. Then again, our last Too Many Bones stream, we played terribly. Okay, good question. Anyway, coin games. Who else wants to see me do a coin game playthrough? And please don't just say yes. Think about how much time and effort it will take me to prepare, considering all of the other games that I still have to play. You know, ideally, I would be doing playthroughs 12 hours a day of every game that there is, but I don't have the time. Right, next. Do I have all of the key stuff behind me but not keeper? So I'll be honest with you. This is a green screen. Okay? Let me just show you. Camera trickery at work here. There you go. That's what's actually behind me. That's a picture from my games room, right? I am sat in the studio with a green screen behind me. I know I've spoilt the illusion, haven't I? So I don't actually know what. Why do I have all of the key stuff behind me but not keeper? Is keeper not there? Well, where's keeper then? Keeper must be somewhere else. Jill is asking a very, very important question. Spaghetti hoops or sausages and beans on toast? Right. So you've given me a choice here, Jill. A, spaghetti hoops on toast, or B, sausages and beans. And I assume by sausages and beans, you mean those things that you buy that are not really sausages. I'd probably go sausages and beans. And here's a top tip. Don't put beans in the microwave or a pan. Fry them. Okay? Fried beans, the sauce goes all thick and sticky and gooey and it's really nice. Anyway, sausages and beans. Next question from Adam. What do I think is an underrated game mechanism that needs more love? I'm going to skip past that one. I think I've answered that one a few times before. And the reason I'm skipping past it is because I don't have one. I can't think of an underrated mechanism that needs more love. All of the game mechanisms that I can think of have been done 100 times. So yeah, ask me on Slack tomorrow, or start a discussion on Slack tomorrow about it. See what other people can do. Banana on pizza, definitely not. Definitely not banana on pizza. Pineapple on pizza, absolutely. Banana on pizza? No. What do I think of the second edition of Great Western Trail? Will I be getting it even though I have the original? Great Western Trail is one of my favourite games. Am I going to be getting the second edition? Yes. Am I going to be playing through the second edition on the channel? Yes. Is the second edition better than the first edition? Yes. Great Western Trail is a fantastic, fantastic game, but the second edition has improved a couple of little tweaks. Next, Monica is saying, can a game have way too many classifications on BGG? Yes. And I've had this discussion with people on various Facebook groups over the last month because, according to BGG, Gloomhaven is classed as a deck builder. Gloomhaven is not a deck builder. But the problem with the classifications on BGG is that some people think that Gloomhaven is a deck builder and therefore Gloomhaven, according to BGG, is now a deck builder. And it's not. It's not at all. So yes, there are definitely, if you look at some games on BGG and you look at their mechanisms, you'll be like, and it lists like 20 mechanisms and it's like, seriously? You know, somebody will probably put Gloomhaven down as a worker placement game because you place your figure on a map. It's crazy. Crazy. Right, next. Sean is asking, do I think I would make it to retirement doing gaming rules? Well, I've already retired, Sean. I had a retirement party 7 years ago. No, to be honest, this is it for me now. This is my life. This is my career. I can't see me ever doing anything else. Retirement, I don't think I'm ever actually going to retire. So, yeah, you've got me till the end. Jill, what room is this and why don't we get a vote? What room is this and why don't we get a vote started to see Paul play one of these? Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so that was before I showed them the green screen. So, yeah, I'm not actually in the games room. Yeah, you do get votes. You've had a vote this month on Anachrony, but it is next month I will be doing another vote for my patron supporters. So every so often, every few months, I decided that I was going to do a thing called Cult of the Old, and it's been a while since I did one. So next month in September, at the start of September, I will be asking my patron supporters which Cult of the Old game do they want to see me play, and there will be a list of games that are between 10 and 15 years old, possibly even older, and you'll be voting on which older game you want to see me play. I might go back 15 years. We'll see. We'll see. What is my favourite place to visit in Devon, says Simon. Ooh. Devon's really nice, and there's lots of nice places in Devon. I don't know whether I have a favourite one. Where's the places we like going to? I mean, we don't go out that much, to be honest. Oh, it's a good question, Simon. And thank you for popping in the chat. I can't think. I tell you what, neither of us are city people, so I'm not going to say like Exeter or Plymouth. In fact, if I said Exeter, all of the Plymouth people will hate me. If I say Plymouth, all of the Exeter people will hate me. It's probably somewhere outdoors. It's probably somewhere outdoors, going for a walk in a park or some woods or something like that. And I don't know whether I've got a favourite one because we don't go out that much. So, yeah, but it'd be something like that. Marco says, how do I evaluate full potential in something that you don't know where the designers will take it? Oh, it's a good it's a good question. I don't quite understand what the question is. How do I evaluate full potential in something that I don't know where the designers will take it? Yeah. Not sure I understand the question. Ask me later on Slack. Well, not later on today. Ask me tomorrow, and I'll go through my answer there. Adam says, what are my thoughts on the newer Time Stories? So we have actually played the new version of Time Stories, which I think is the blue box. We've played the first two, because we play tested the second one. We played the first one, the underwater one, and then we play tested the second one. Did it come out? I think it's come out. Yeah, the second one we play tested. Really like them. So Time Stories is a game which the concept of it I liked. but unfortunately Time Stories started gathering a negative reputation about it. And what it's meant is, when Time Stories effectively rebooted itself with a new blue box edition, a lot of people had dismissed it. And that's a shame, because the new blue box edition of Time Stories fixes the problem that a lot of people had with the original one, which was that you kept replaying the same bit of time and therefore you had to keep going back and doing the same thing again. The new version of Time Stories is not like that. The new version of Time Stories is more like an adventure game, and there's no repeating, there's no loops. Now, personally, I didn't mind the repeating and the loops. I thought that was very cool, because you very rarely actually repeated something in its entirety. But some of the previous scenarios did have that as a problem. So yeah, if you've been put off from Time Stories because of the repeating nature, but you liked the idea of it, go out and treat yourself to one of the new, the blue box reboots. There's an underwater one, and there's a Midsummer Night's Dream one, I think, because they don't do that. They are different, and they're really good. Yeah, really like them. Have we got the Lego Death Star yet? We do not have the Lego Death Star. How do we find the timeline games? Interesting, Monica. And in fact, games played with kids. Going back to the previous question, Timeline, I will be honest with you, is not a game that I will ever sit down and choose to play myself. But I think the Timeline games are a brilliant idea for playing with kids, because they're fun and they're educational, but they have the problem that once you've played that particular Timeline game 10 times, 20 times, you know it, and therefore you're going to win. But as I say, I've played Timeline a few times with kids, and it was a great experience, and I think they are really good as fun and possibly educational games. But yeah. Do I think Helter Skelter fixes the problem with Wildlands? Have I tried Helter Skelter solo? I'd love to be able to give you an answer on that, because I do have Helter Skelter. I haven't played it solo. I want to play it solo. I have been wanting to play Helter Skelter solo for months, but my Patreon supporters vote on which solo games they want to see me play. Sometimes I do the ones that I want to play, but sometimes I ask my Patreon supporters. And for months and months, I kept putting Judge Dredd Helter Skelter on there, and it never got enough votes. So I still want to do it, and I will do it when I have time to do it, but I am influenced over what games I put on the channel from the people who make the channel possible. And if my Patreon supporters vote on, like this month, this Friday, they have voted on Anachrony. Anachrony, out of all of the games that I put on the list, would not have been my number one choice, but more people want to see Anachrony this month than any other game. So I am going to do Anachrony. That's not to say I'm not going to enjoy it. I think Anachrony is a great game and I love it. But I'm just saying there are other games that I would have wanted to do. So yeah, I do want to try Helter Skelter solo. I've not tried it. I don't know whether Helter Skelter fixes the problem that I had with Wildlands. I don't think it does, because I think I've played on the channel. Yeah, I think I've played Helter Skelter on the channel, and I think I played it 4-player, and it had exactly the same problem as I have with Wildlands. Again, we can discuss this at another time, although I have talked about it, I think, on a vlog. Monica is asking, print and play games, yay or nay? Any print and play games I enjoy. So, print and play games I think are brilliant. And 10 years ago, I absolutely loved print and play games, because I used to work at the University of Exeter. I had access to a colour laser printer, and I'd spend my lunch breaks printing out all of these games, and then I'd spend the evening sitting down in front of TV, cutting them out, making up. I'd spend like 3 or 4 days making an entire game that was available for print and play. Now, I have no time to do that whatsoever. When I've got a massive backlog of games that I need to cover on the channel that I want to play, I don't have time these days for print and play games, but I think they are fantastic for the people who were in the situation that I was in 10 years ago. There is one print and play game that we did play called the Doomsday Machine, Ultimate Engine. Oh, what was it called? Anybody in the chat knows. It's a print and play game. It's a solo game where you roll dice and you fill in boxes, and it's about creating this machine to try and save the world. I've got the files on my Dropbox. Let me just check. Have I got the files on my Dropbox? Okay, so the Dropbox is opening on my other computer, on my other screen. Bear with us a minute. What was it called? Somebody said it in the chat. What's it called? What's it called? Utopia Engine. That was it. Yeah, Utopia Engine. Yeah, Ori. Yeah, I know you've played it. Yeah, great little game. Quite random, but it's like a little solo puzzle game where you're rolling dice and you're filling in boxes, and it takes about half an hour or an hour. And there's a second one as well. So yeah, Utopia Engine. Go and check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Definitely one we said we'd like to play again. You know, if you're going somewhere and you're sat in a car park or you're going camping or something like that, yeah, it's pretty good. Right, next question. How are we doing for time? I am going to have to be wrapping this up fairly soon. Stefan, exceptionally good artwork and game pieces improves an otherwise average game. Yes. Yes, it does. But as I said earlier on, it doesn't matter how good the artwork is. It doesn't matter how good the miniatures are. If the game isn't good, I won't play it. But if the game is good, then does exceptionally good artwork and game pieces make the game experience better? Yes, absolutely 100%. Monica says, am I thinking of fully going into board game work and retiring from my main job? Monica, this is my main job. Yeah, this is my main job. What else do you think that I do? Yeah, no, this is it for me. This is my job. Gnome says, why do you work on separate rulebooks at a time? Why not make a rulebook queue, finish one before starting that? I'd love to. I would absolutely love to, but it's not possible. The nature of the business, the nature of the industry. So for example, right now, I'm still working on the Batman Gotham City Chronicles rulebook because there was a certain thing that we were waiting for before doing the next bit. I'm working on this ISS Vanguard rulebook. I'm working on the Hybris rulebook. We've got I've done the Weather Machine rulebook, but the solo rules haven't been finished yet. So yeah, it's more a case of my timelines have to fit in with the publishers and the designers' timelines, and therefore I'm having to juggle all of these things. There is no way that I could say, right, I am now doing this rulebook and I'm not doing anything else. If I was to say to Vittel next week, when he passes me the solo rules for Weather Machine and says, right, Paul, I need you to do these, I can't turn around and say, I'm afraid, Vittel, you're going to have to wait 2 months. I just can't do that. So I need to fit it in the schedule. What that means is that I end up working on multiple ones at a time. What I try to do is I try to say, right, today is the Weather Machine rulebook. However, Vittel will say, I'm only here for 2 hours today, at which point I have to use that opportunity with him. And then I'll say, oh, you're here tomorrow? And he says, no, I'm going swimming tomorrow. Oh, well, all right. When are you back? Oh, I'm back on Thursday. Right, okay. So that's why I end up multitasking effectively. Adam is asking, what was the last game that I wanted to love, but it fell flat for me? I'll come back to that one later on, Adam, just because we're running out of time. I'm going to highlight these and I will, what I'm going to do, every question that I highlight now, I am going to answer on the Board Game Geek Guild. So Vicky is going to post a link to the Board Game Geek Guild. As I say, if you're not on the guild, please go and join up. It is guild number 2258. Check it out. Make sure you join it. Make sure you subscribe to it. And at some point, possibly, no, not at the weekend, because I've got a busy weekend. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday, if not early next week, I will go through and I will answer all of these questions that I haven't got round to answering today. I will start a thread on the guild and I will answer all of these questions. James is asking, ask Paul anything, why don't I like Mage Knights or Arkham Horror LCG? Yeah, there are some people in the world who don't like Mage Knight or Arkham Horror Living Card Game. Those people are, technically speaking, in the dictionary definition known as wrong. But don't worry about it. That's fine. We can still be friends, James. We can still be friends. Can you unfriend James on Facebook? Thank you. Honest thoughts on the Forgotten Age campaign so far? Yeah. Adam, join the Arkham Horror LCG channel on the Slack group. On the Slack group, there is an Arkham Horror LCG channel. I will tell you there. We've only played one game. It feels very, very punishing. Charlie wants to know, if you've played it, do I think Shogun is a good risk replacement? you're thinking about buying it. So yeah, Charlie, I will, if you mean Shogun as in samurai swords, because there's been a new version of Shogun, which is a re-implementation of Wallenstein. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the same game. If you look on Board Game Geek now for a game called Shogun, that is not the one that I'm talking about from the 80s. The one I'm talking about from the 80s was originally called Shogun, but they renamed it to Samurai Swords. And the one on BGG that's called Shogun is actually a replacement for Wallenstein. So, if you mean, do I think Samurai Swords is a good replacement for Risk? Well, I think it's better than Risk. It's far more complicated than Risk. It is a lot more complicated than Risk. So I'm going to say yes, it's better than Risk, but it's a lot longer and it's a lot more detailed. Adam, how long before the new Gaming Rules 24-hour gaming marathon live stream? I can't do that. I'm afraid I can't do a 24-hour gaming marathon live stream anymore. My health and my age wouldn't cope with it. What is always my highlight of Essen? I'll answer that one later on. As I say, the alarm's going downstairs and dinner is ready. So, right. Next question from Carson. Sorry, I don't get the question. Right, yeah, I'm not sure what that question is. You have to rework on or not. Next question is from Mark. Are we planning on our weekly Paul's Random Ramblings at 700 patrons? That was it. That was it. Well remembered, Mark. Okay, so when we get to 750 patron supporters, which at the current rate of growth should be the end of this year, I am planning on a once a week live stream where I do a Paul's Random Ramblings, where I basically pick a topic and I talk about that topic for 5 or 10 minutes. And the idea is that it isn't live because I don't want it to become an interactive chat or anything like this. I might actually still do it live, but the idea is that I don't look at the chat, okay? I basically ramble for 5 or 10 minutes about something that I want to talk about, and that's it. And that was the next goal. I'd completely forgotten that. So yeah, 750 patron supporters, I will be doing Paul's Random Ramblings, and it might be weekly or it might be every other week because I don't want to end up getting into a situation where I suddenly find, oh my God, I've got 4 of these to do a month. But that was it. Final question from Hall Paul. Before we go, shoot for 1,000 supporters before year's end. No. I'd love to, but at a rate of growth of between about 5 a month, it's going to take 250 divided by 5, 50. It's going to take 4 years. It'll take us 4 years to get to 1,000 supporters. So, right, final question for today. What does Agamonia do differently than other games in the genre? Would it be a good solo-only experience? Right, I'll answer your second question first. Agamonia would be a good solo-only experience. The reason I'm saying that is, although I would never play it solo, I would also never play Gloomhaven solo. There are a lot of people who play Gloomhaven solo, Spirit Island solo, lots of other games solo and think they're brilliant. Agamonia is in the same category. You could absolutely play Agamonia solo. What does it do differently than other games in the genre? For me, having played many games in that genre of fantasy, cooperative, narrative, etc., what it does differently is an evolving storyline that happens during the game. Imagine the Arkham Horror LCG with a board, okay? Gloomhaven, which I really enjoy Gloomhaven, but you get the mission briefing at the start and then you play effectively what is a tactical combat game, right? There's no real adventure or story within a game of Gloomhaven apart from what you get at the start and what you get at the end. That's just my honest opinion. In Agamonia, you have a map, but as you move across the map, you reveal story points, you reveal extra bits of information, the story evolves as you're playing the game. It feels very much like a cross between, fantasy cooperative, because there is tactical combat in it as well, but there's also this, it feels very much like a role-playing game. So for example, when the players reach a certain point on the road, the GM will say, you hear a noise in the forest off to your left, right? That sort of thing, the interactive nature of Agamonia makes it feel like, for me, you're playing a role-playing game with the GM as revealing the cards and reading out the next bit of the story to you. So yeah, there you go. We are done. We need to head downstairs and get dinner, because tonight there will be Arkham Horror Living Card Game. If you are interested, at 8 o'clock tonight, which is in 1 hour 23 minutes from now, I will be playing, as you can see, I'm not going to show it, the Arkham Horror Living Card Game. We are playing the Forgotten Age campaign. We did chapter 1 a couple of weeks ago. I'm doing this every 2 weeks for the next 4 months. We're playing through the entire campaign. That's everything. Just before we go, big thank you very much to all of my Patreon supporters. This video is obviously not sponsored in any way. Gameslaw have given me £25 worth of games vouchers to give away, but I'm not being paid at all to make this video. So this video and all of the other content that I'm making at the moment is only made possible through the support of the Patreon campaign. So if you like this video, please obviously give the video a like, subscribe, but please consider supporting me on Patreon. Quick thing, what I'm doing this weekend. I mentioned Arkham Horror Living Card Game tonight. Anachrony on Friday. Right, this weekend is my delayed 50th birthday party. So in July 2020, I turned 50. What I normally do on a birthday is I will have a games weekend and people will come over and play games. We haven't been able to do that due to coronavirus. So I'm doing it this weekend. So this weekend is my delayed 50th birthday party. 12 people are coming over. We're going to be gaming all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And all of those games that I'm playing are going to be live streamed, but they are only going to be live streamed to Patreon supporters. I will be making some or all of the videos available later on the YouTube channel. But if you are a Patreon supporter of mine and you are on the Slack channel, watch out this weekend for links to the games. I'm doing it like that for a couple of reasons. One of them being, we don't exactly know what games we're playing yet. Okay, I know some of them. I know I'm playing NO 1800. I know I'm playing Aeon's End. I know I'm playing Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. And I know that I'm playing Eclipse. They are some of the games that I'm playing this weekend. And they will all be live streamed to Patreon supporters. But I don't know what games I'm going to be playing yet on the Sunday. So therefore, I'm not advertising it. But basically, once we've decided what game we're playing, we will set it all up. I will set the video going and it will be live to Patreon supporters. And then, as I say, I'll edit the video afterwards and put it up for other people to see. But I won't be doing that for all of them, but for some of them. So yeah, if you are a Patreon supporter of mine and you're thinking, how do I get access to these videos? It will be on the Slack channel, okay? I'm not going to be posting links to them to the Patreon page because they will be very impromptu and ad hoc. So yeah, if you're on the Slack channel, you will get the links to them. If you're not on the Slack channel, please join the Slack channel. If you don't know how to join the Slack channel, get in contact with me and I can get you on there. But as I say, the videos will be going live on the channel sometime the week after. All Patreon supporters in the UK show up at Paul's house this weekend. No, please don't. That would be brilliant. It would be fantastic. But we are trying to keep it so that the house isn't overrun. We're keeping it to 12 people, which should be enough. Right, is dinner ready? Dinner's not ready. Why is dinner not ready? Oh dear. 5 minutes. Okay, so dinner will be ready in 5 minutes. Thank you very much for watching. I will see some of you later on for the Arkham Horror stream. But other than that, take care, everybody. Any questions you've got, let me know. Drop them as a comment on this video or just getting in contact with me. I'll speak to you later on. Cheers, everyone.
Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppers LLC